Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, Pedro here. Welcome to this week's video. If you're new here, welcome to this absolutely so amazing channel. I hope you never leave. Just joking. Today guys, I'm going to take you through 7 things that I wish I knew before I applied to med schools in the UK. These are just some 7 things even that I think that it's really important for you to know so that you can have the best chance of actually getting in. And there are mainly things that I learned the hard way. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. They're cutting the grass now. I apologise for that, by the way. I need to publish this video tomorrow and I don't actually have time to film this another time, so just bear with me for today guys. I'm so sorry about it. Okay, anyway, first thing I want to talk about is do your research. Really important that you research your med school unis to the T. And that's because each med school will have something different that they're looking for in their applicants. And they have a very different selection process. And it's important that you know where do you have the strengths to apply to. So for example, a university will potentially put a lot or 100% emphasis on your UCAT score. That's your, it's an admissions test, by the way, called the University Clinical Aptitude Test, which I will be taking this September. Prepping for that now, and it's important that you know what the selection process wants. So if you find that you have a really low UCAT score but really good GCSE grades, then it makes sense to apply to a university which ranks candidates based on their GCSE scores as opposed to just their UCAT scores. So this is why it's really important to do the research on the university that you want to get into so that you can actually tailor your application towards that, knowing what they want in a personal statement or what do they want for work experience. That's probably the best single advice that I can give you. I know someone who got an offer or offers to medicine, and he said that if you know the admissions process well enough, you can pretty much guarantee yourself an interview, but it really is on you to do the research part, just to know very well what the admissions process wants from you for each individual university. In the UK there are 44 universities, I believe, so research, I'm going to say research them all, that way you can find which university you actually stand a chance of getting into. Next point I want to say is that I learned the hard way, is that grades don't actually mean much for medicine. Hear me out. So everyone applying will pretty much have met or be predicted to meet the standard 3A at A-level requirement. And just because you have 3A stars does not mean that you're going to get a place. That I had to learn the hard way. I applied initially to Oxford, Imperial and UCL, but because I thought I had 3A stars predicted and 9 9s at GCSE, so yeah, I'm academic enough, I'll get in anywhere. That, guys, is not true. I learned that the hard way, but I really want to get that across to you, that grades don't matter beyond the entry requirements. Unless, of course, the university says in their admissions process that we rank candidates based on your grades. In that case, please do the research. Like I said, that's why it's so important to do your research. But for the most part, for example, I think Brighton and Sussex, for example, once you've met the 3A requirements, they don't care about that anymore. So just be really aware of that, because I had to learn that the hard way. And that sort of segues onto the third point, which is you really have to develop the other parts of yourself. And that consequently means you'll develop other parts of your application, right? So make sure you get in that work experience so you can talk about it at interview and not just focusing your whole time on making sure you've got that A star, because although your grades are important, they're not generally the deciding factor in the end. I mean, you still have to meet 3As, but my point is there are other parts that universities actually care about. So your work experience, your communication, your BMAT or your UCAT scores are really vital. So it's not just about the grades, guys, not just about the grades. And it's also important to develop other parts of yourself whilst actually at uni, or apply to a university where you can actually develop the other parts. As I talked with Dr. Ivy somewhere, video link up here, she said that it's really important that you go somewhere where you can continue to grow the other parts of you. So not just focusing on your degree, not just focusing on that medicine, but also developing other parts. So if you're interested in sports, for example, apply somewhere where they have great sporting facilities. Likewise, if it's music or photography or filmmaking, life is not just going to be about your degree. And if you don't develop that other parts, there will always be a part of yourself that isn't fully formed. And that can lead to really bad mental health problems. I know I can speak from experience that for me, my release is rowing, and you have to have something else to fall back on as a break from your main activity. That's why it's really important to just make sure you apply somewhere where you can develop the other parts of yourself. This grass cutting is really getting on my nerves. Another thing I want to say is reputation from the med school, at least in this country, does not matter. As Ali Abdaal would say, no one cares where you went to med school. You're either a doctor or you're not. And I guess it makes sense, right? Because the employer is the NHS. The employer is the same. And I don't really think that as we currently stand, I don't think the NHS can afford to cherry pick medical applicants from different universities. So that's why I'm saying, please, don't let league tables influence your decision on where you go to med school. That's like the last thing that should matter. The thing about UK med schools is that they're all accredited or say audited by the GMC, so that's the General Medical Council, and that pretty much means that if a med school isn't good, it doesn't exist. So, I mean, it doesn't really, from my understanding at least, from talking with doctors and with multiple med students, they all say the same thing. Guys, where you go to med school in this country does not matter. As long as it's somewhere where you actually enjoy and where you can develop as a human being, that's fine. Point number 5 is I want to get across is that particularly for the BMAT, so the biomedical admissions test, which is an admissions test that you have to take if you want to apply to Brighton and Sussex Medical School, Imperial, Lancaster, University College London, University of Cambridge, University of Leeds, University of Oxford and Keele. The really bad thing about the BMAT, especially during coronavirus, is that you only take the exam after you apply in October. So you take the exam in November. And what that means is you don't get your grade or your score until after you've applied. So it's a really, really big risk. And what I did, stupidly, and again, I learnt the hard way, was I decided to only do the BMAT. And that didn't play to my advantage because I was scoring around 6s and 7s on section 1 and section 2, only to get a 4.3 and on section 1 on the real thing, and consequently that meant pretty much an automatic rejection from 3 of my 4 med school choices. The one I did get in, or at least I got an interview to, was BSMS. That's because I don't think have such strict, or they're more generous on their BMAT requirements, although they do have a threshold, which isn't the same for the other universities. So please do both the UCAT and the BMAT, don't just stick to one. I guess like the reason I did only one was because I thought my logic was that if I bang it out, if I make sure that I'm excellent at the BMAT, I'll get somewhere. But the point is, it's unpredictable and it is a gamble, it's a risk. So please, I suggest do both, because the UCAT you can actually do before you apply and you know your score before you actually send off your application. And that is, of course, a lot safer. And it's also not a good idea to put all your eggs in one basket, if you get the metaphor. And the next thing I want to say, or the penultimate thing, is prepare for a gap year. The reason I say this is because a lot of students who apply the first time around don't get in, me included. But like I said, if your motivation is sound and strong enough, sorry about this guys, but if your motivation is sound and strong enough, you actually spend a year preparing your application, making sure it's perfect. Just because you didn't get in the first time doesn't mean you're not going to be a great doctor. It just means that it's really, really, really freaking competitive. But if you use it properly, if you use that time wisely, you actually get so much experience, so much work experience, so much exposure to different demographics that you actually have an advantage over those who got in the first time. And I think it's just a great time to have a break, you know, you've just spent 5 years studying through GCSEs and A-levels, and you're going straight in the deep end to 5-year medical course. I think it's important to have a break, you know, just so that when you do start your medicine course, you're actually refreshed and focused and actually perform better, you know. And it's also a time for maturity. I mean, at least for me, I've matured so much in the last 8 months that I'm exceptionally grateful for not getting in the first time. It's probably the best thing that's happened to me, and I say this in July of 2021, having applied in September 2020. Yeah, 2020. Sorry, I'm getting my dates mixed up. But when you finally do get in, you'll have an advantage over those who got in the first time, and I think it's incredible just to have that time. And lastly, guys, the last thing I want to say, you have to make sure you want it. Please make sure you actually want to get into medicine. Make sure that your motivation is sound and it's for the right reasons. I say this because the admissions process is brutal. At least from my perspective, it was brutal. So you have to prepare months in advance for the admissions tests. You got to get a ton of work experience so you actually come across as you know what you're talking about in your personal statement. And you have to do a lot of interview prep and just to go through the grueling interviews. And it's a really long and complicated process. For me, I applied in September 2020, only to get my final rejection in May of 2022. So that is a very long time of you just sitting on edge, and it really tests your motivation. So make sure that you actually want to get into medicine, because otherwise it's just not going to be, it's just not going to happen, I don't think, right? It's just not going to happen because you won't have that motivation to keep you going, if you know what I'm saying, if that makes sense. So guys, that pretty much brings it to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed. I hope it's been useful. Look, if you have to take one thing away from this today, is that just because you didn't get in the first time doesn't mean you won't get in at all. You can still be a great doctor, but as long as your motivation is sound. And also, do your research. Please, please, please do your research. Look up the admissions process and selection process for every single university and apply to where you have an advantage, because medicine is really competitive. And I don't think, well, at least for me, you can't cherry pick which university you go to. You make sure that you can develop other parts of yourself, and do not let league tables influence your choice, okay? I'm gonna stop talking there because I'm just blabbering on for now, okay? Guys, I hope you enjoyed. It's been a pleasure. And I'll see you guys next week. Peace out.